Good evening, Judy.
This is our first night back, and we'd like to appreciate everybody for coming. I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much for coming. So I didn't practice anything else. So I'm going to turn it over to Don.
I think everybody knows we're going to be having a spring art show called Art on the Hill again this year. So we've got the postcards now available. If anybody would like them to hand out, we can get more at any time. The other thing, and this is really for those who are watching it, we're looking for people who would like to help out with this show. We have openings to help with taking in the artwork, hanging the artwork, picking it up, stuff that wasn't accepted in the show, help with the reception. And then on weekends, we're going to be responsible for sitting here in the gallery. During the week, the Hill School will be watching it. So if anybody out there would like to sign up, Mary's already signed up. Other thing I'd like to tell people about, and if you bear with me while we do a little art by internet, is now up and showing. Art on the Hill, the spring show, coming next month. Libby Cirillo, she does art in fabric. Let me introduce our speaker for the night, Gregory. I think I'll let him tell you about himself.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for having me here. I know Rhonda can't be here. She's working on the set of Annie, but I want to thank her for just kind of giving me this opportunity to speak with you guys and kind of show you my story and my craft. My name is Gregory Didyoung. I am from Berks County. I grew up in Muhlenberg, and then I went to RAC for 2 years and finished my degree at Kutztown University. I'm an electronic media major and an art history minor. I think the first thing that we're going to do is just show a quick 6-7 minute video that I have, and it kind of shows you the story of my life and my craft, and then we'll kind of delve into a little bit more. But basically what I'm known for doing are what I call photo grain prints. It's a term that I coined because it's not a photograph, it's a photo grain, which is works applied directly onto wood. So the wood grain shows through. There's no white ink used or anything like that. So the video will kind of show you how we go about this, and then we can dive right in and show you a little more detail about how it's all done. So Don, if you want to show the video and kind of get up to speed on me and my process.
Okay.
I've always enjoyed working with wood. It probably comes from my love of nature, my fascination with woods, a place that I could always escape to. Wood's, very temperamental. It was a living thing. It's fragile yet durable. Each piece is unique because no two trees are alike. One day I'd like to have a large workshop where I can create the masterpieces inside of my head. But for now, I'm enjoying living tiny in our renovated motorhome with the love of my life, Nick, and our cat, Noodle. I get to create lots of new works because of the time and travel that tiny living offers. My name is Gregory Didyoung, and I'm an artist who takes photographs and digital compositions and I apply them directly onto wood. The wood grain shows through, and it really gives the pieces this warm, rustic, nostalgic feeling. I think digital art is still struggling to kind of find its place in fine art, but by far it's my favorite medium. Some view the endless possibilities and the undo button as cheating, but I think creating art digitally is a balancing act. It's striving for perfection because you can, trying to maintain that artistic expression without appearing too polished or commercial. I personally use Photoshop and Inkscape for almost all of my work. My complex compositions I create are made from scanning old books, vectorizing my old photographs, using some other public domain imagery. I kind of take all these bits and pieces and I kind of put them together into a new form of art. Fun fact is, every complex composition I have has my cat Noodle hidden in it somewhere. But my digital work is just half the story. It's marrying that digital element with my handcrafted wood substrates that kind of really sets my work apart. For now, my entire workshop is contained in a custom 8x12 trailer I built. My tools are in the back, and my catalog of work sits up front. I personally cut each of my own substrates from either birch or maple, give each one a beveled edge, and I sand it to ensure it's straight and square. Each substrate then gets an ink receptive coating, and it's ready for the next step. The this modified, wide format printer is just like me. A little rough around the edges, broken and screwed back together, but a true workhorse. It's here that my digital works become reality. Carefully choose a piece of wood whose work will work with the digital image. After printing, each piece gets UV coated for years of enjoyment. It's been an interesting road to get here. I had the dream of showing the world my through hike of the Appalachian Trail by putting my pictures of the woods onto wood. An idea was born. By day, I was a news photojournalist, and by night, a mad scientist, buying used printers off of Craigslist, tearing them apart, trying to create new ways to print directly onto wood. Through trial and error and years of adjustments, I had perfected the process. I did mostly family and photo prints and craft shows, but there I got to hone my skills, dreaming that someday, maybe I'd be an artist. On June 10th, 2017, my life changed forever when I received a double compound fracture on my right arm from going off a jump while downhill mountain biking. That injury led to an undiagnosed deep-seated bone infection, which nearly cost me my life, let alone my arm. Through all the unknowns, I started creating artwork, being more creative just to detract from the stresses of the infection in my situation. Instead of commissioned family photos, I just began to work creatively. I began to work for myself. In between 4 daily rounds of injections into my heart, I hobbled into the 14th annual Frank Scott Awards at the Gaga Works, excited to be in my first exhibit. To my astonishment, I won first place in my first exhibit. And although it cemented me into the world of art, more importantly and personally, it boosted my morale at one of the scariest and lowest times of my life. I've been fortunate enough to win awards during all of my recovery, and even now at places like Studio B. It seems I had a different cast for every different award I got. I'm healthy again now. I'm writing, creating artwork, doing woodworking. For 3 years now, I've been a juried member, and I help operate Art Plus Gallery in West Reading. I also like to do sculptures, such as my Balance of Nature rock spheres. I enjoy painting, and I recently completed a mural for the city of Reading during the pandemic. The painting even got me featured on the other end of the camera from my old employer. Talk about a weird feeling. My crowning achievement, however, is a large 30-foot mobile I made entitled Soaring with Innovation. Constructed out of aluminum, it's a flock of futuristic birds that soar towards progress, while a side sweep of birds looks to join in. The piece was part of a building design contract that I had completed for a corporate client, Teleflex Medical, in Wyomissing. The precision and the refinement that I bring to my work continues to grow, and I'm just excited for what's next. Every piece gets better. My work is punchy, it's high contrast, it's usually playful. My digital pieces and compositions have a very pop art, almost advertisement vibe to them, and I love that. My photographs on wood reflect my love and connection with nature, and my want to transport you there. Some artists can paint a horizon, the composition in absolute detail. They get the right hues, they get the correct shading, but some artists, they look beyond that horizon, and they see what others can't. They innovate what's next, and they create something that people have never seen before. As an artist, that's what I aim to do.
Okay, so I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I threw a lot at you there.
How old are you? Yeah, a hell of a lot of stuff.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very multifaceted. I'm very fortunate to do this. If we get the slides going, we'll kind of go through that whole story a little bit more and kind of break down. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me. But basically, like I said, it all started when I was 20 years old and I hiked the Appalachian Trail, and I just started getting into photography. And I said, well, my pictures aren't the best. How can I display them in a unique way? I didn't have the big fancy camera. So I started thinking, I was like, wouldn't it be cool to put the woods on wood? Has anybody ever done it? So I looked, they use white ink, there's like UV printers. Nobody has done what I've done, so it took me years to develop that. Okay. So there's me hiking the Appalachian Trail with my idea. I was 20 and then 20 years old, and the idea came. So some of the photographs my most successful ones are actually from that hike. So that's where the idea was implemented. And then over the years, I got hired at 69 News, which would be the next slide. Two over, and I should put my phone on silent so you don't hear a turkey all day. Sorry about that. So this is a photograph of the Smoky Mountains. This is on wood. Now you can barely tell it on this one, but it kind of gives a warmth to it that would not normally be there. It's a little more cold in the photograph, but the wood kind of warms it up. So that was my idea coming to fruition, the woods on woods. Next slide, hold on. So I worked at the news. I was a second shift employer for 5 years. And at nighttime, I'd get done at 11 o'clock and I wouldn't be able to go to bed. So I would try to make this idea work of putting wood on wood. I looked online, nobody had done it, tried to find ways, and I started going on to t-shirt printing. I thought that would be a good way. One-off t-shirt printers, take that technology and modify it to print on wood. Go to the next slide, Don. This is me. I have tons of printers that I wasted too much money on and broke. But here's the simple concept of it. You take a printer, the guts of it out, and you actually have a sliding platen where you put your substrate on, and the printer actually then moves. So that was the goal. But you can see in my first designs, it was MDF board. It was just me trying to figure it out. So I broke a lot of things before I got it right. Next slide. I started doing craft shows. That's at the Hamburg Fieldhouse. I did very successful there. And just kind of thought that was my place. I was like, maybe I'll just be a crafter. Never really considered myself an artist. Always wanted to be an artist, but you all intimidate me. So I never considered myself an artist. So I feel like it's comforting when I intimidate people back. So I say the feeling is mutual. Next slide, then. So you all know about my bike accident. This is the scar that is left.
Wow.
And the plate, which is right here. It still works. I'm a case study there at Penn State now. They often use me as an example, but not my name. So I was actually befriended the doctor. I got to know him for 4 years and gave him a cool piece of artwork when we were done. So he was very excited about that. But this is what changed my life. I was able to take something negative, you can go to the next slide then, and turn it into a positive. That's my current arm. That's my 4th plate, and they won't put any more plates, and they won't try to take it out because it's too much. But now I'm healed and healthy, so I could able to do my artwork. Next slide. And then, as you saw in the video, here I am at the 2018 Frank Scott Art of Jazz at the Goggle Works. And it was funny because I was actually going for surgery the day submission was. So I remember my friends were dropping off those pieces of artwork, and I was going under, and they said, there's a 50-50 chance when you wake up, you will not have an arm. So I said, okay. And I woke up and I had an arm. And then my next question was, were my pieces submitted? You know, priorities. So it was submitted. And then I remember I had to do pit line injections all day. A nurse would come to my house and do it. That's a thing on my arm there. And she gave me a 20-minute window to go hobble into the award ceremony. And I remember my piece was moved to the center of the room, and everybody's like, that's weird. And then I won. And it really kind of catapulted me into the fine art world. Kind of made me think of myself in a different way. I got to meet a lot of people, kind of gave me the connections and the confidence. And art aside, it was just a really nice pick-me-up at a really tough time of my life. To have something just to focus on, not even winning, but to be focused on that and not my arm. So that was kind of the catalyst, which really kind of launched me to where I am today. Next slide. Then it was, as this piece right behind me, this is called Evolve. This is when I started to think more critically. Okay, let's keep going and let's push yourself as an artist. What else can we do? How can we get, build more fine artists? So this was a piece that I did that was themed all about animals and ecology, and I decided to kind of play the interplay between, the connections. Like these would be animals you would see in a river, and then you see their physical similarities. Or there's the bee and the cat, where they're exact opposite. The tentacles down, the ear is up, but they kind of also work. It was just a fun piece, but that got me launched at Studio B, where I won first, which is when Martha Rest, I don't know if you know her, she runs Art Plus Gallery, and she said, are you in a gallery and why are you not? So that kind of launched me to be in a gallery. So I've been at Art Plus ever since late 2018. So it's been awesome there, helping to run that. So we're 25 fine artists on this cooperative. Our meetings are a lot longer than yours. I wish ours were as short as yours. Next slide, please. There I am at Art Plus Gallery. I'm sure you guys might be familiar with that, some of you. Next slide, Don. Okay, I do live tiny, as you saw in that video. It's a 36-foot RV that I completely renovated. I gutted it, I put all driftwood in it, I repainted it, I did backsplash, did it really cool. Me and my boyfriend have been there for 5 years now. I didn't think I'd be living 5 years tiny, but I fell in love with the state of Vermont. So I work for the state park in the summer, and I get to, that is my view. So I get to work on the artwork, and then I bring it down here for display. That's me painting the mural that's on the parking garage, and that was right in the height of COVID. And that was our beacon of light, which is a black and a white hand kind of coming together. It was about racial unity and also about COVID unity. So we were trying to kind of capture all of that, a really tough time in 2020. Next slide. This is the piece that I took, your photographer. So I finally got good at doing big panoramas. This is 6 photographs stitched together.
Wow.
It's really big. This is actually going up Penn State Lancaster. It'll be a 32-foot panorama wide.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah, it's going to be big. So I had to make sure I could get the quality good enough. But it was one of those I tried before and I failed and they weren't good enough. So to have an approval to get this one going was kind of like, all right, you did it, you know? And the funny story was, the reason that I got to this good camera was because on a rainy day I was going for a walk on the trail and I dropped and I broke my lens. And again, I was like, how do I turn this into something positive? So I spent money and got a better lens and it really paid off. So kind of find positive and negatives.
Different polarities.
Yes, yeah. This is just a segue picture for me. I want to talk a little bit about my process. I'm sure you guys have questions about how I do it. That was just a cool cast everybody liked, so I figured that would be a good segue picture. Next slide, Don. Okay, so here is a little different than how I normally do it, but I think this is a good example for you to see kind of how I start to put stuff together. Here is one of the Cosmic Garden pieces, and this was all developed off of my work in Vermont. So great flowers there. I was there all season. Every day I was out taking pictures of a new flower, spring, summer, fall. And then I had this idea based off of my mural, which you'll see later, this Cosmic Garden. I want to speak about the fragility of flowers and plant matter in the juxtaposition with space, you know, to talk about that. So I want to do 10 works. So here I am kind of storyboarding it. So digitally, I'm kind of saying like, here's my fern backgrounds, here's the flowers I have, what flowers should go where, and then there's my space picture. So I just kind of want to show you guys my thought process and how these things kind of get compiled together. So this is a background space picture, just added elements, just kind of help balance it out. And then these are all different ferns and flowers from all within the bounds of Molly Stark State Park. I'd go around with little black fabric and I'd put it all around and take a picture so it wouldn't have anything behind it. So it'd be easier to extract that flower or that fern in Photoshop. And then I would kind of use these elements as paints. Instead of thinking of paint, like I would have different ferns and different, so that was how I would think of them. But that's kind of how I put it together and then I'd kind of work from there. But it's just, I guess people don't get to see that side of it. So I thought you guys would be interested in kind of seeing how I kind of start to put it together. Next slide. Here's my Appalachian Trail piece that I did 2 years ago for an exhibit. But just kind of show you when I get them all together, I hand make the frames, then they all kind of get UV sealed. But here's the collection. I kind of try to wait to do 10 at a time, maybe more, because it saves a lot of time when you do it in bulk. But I hand make the frames, I stain them, I do the substrates. It's all gelatin ink receptive coating on here. And this is just regular cabinet grade birch. I've done Baltic birch, but it's very, very heavy. So this actually works really well. And it's just an ink aid, which ink aid is a gelatin ink receptive coating that you can use to put in a regular printer. You can print on fabric, on rice papers, or things like that. So I said, can you use it on wood? So I contacted the company and they said, nobody's ever asked us. Let's find out. So I worked with the company and found out what product would be best to do it. And that's my secret. So thank you guys for watching. It's Inkade. It's but it's fun for you guys to play around with two of your own printers. Like if you do photography or you want to reprint your own, like G-Clay print, you could put this coating on anything, and as long as it fits through your printer, it'll print on it. So it's pretty neat stuff. Next slide. There's my little trailer. It's a 7x12 trailer that I have since I do live tiny. I divided it out and I built the whole workshop. I wired it. I put all the tools in there. That's where all of my frames and the substrates all get cut and created. And then the front half of it, that wall there, that's a wall, dividing wall. Go to the next slide, Don. And here's the front where my printer can hide. And then kind of all around are prints. They're a little more neatly placed now than when I took this photograph. But yeah, that's all kind of crammed in there. So someday when I'm not living tiny, I can't wait to have a real studio, but we'll get there. Next slide, Don. As you saw earlier, there's my famous kitty, beer kitty, getting printed out of my printer. It's been a workhorse. I do use dye-based ink, which is not as archival as pigment, but you get way better color with dye-based ink. So I use a lot of top coating, UV sealing, or epoxy to help be steadfast, the colors not fade. But I'm a really big fan of dye-based inks, even though they're not as archival as pigment. So that is a dye-based printer. Next slide. Here is me making all of my frames, and then the pieces that will be attached on them, just kind of showing you the process of how we do it. It's just common 1x2 board, and then I just use different stains to mimic what wood they are. It's just regular pine. Next one. This is my hunk of junk, all made out of. These were fun. I would just go to, old books, public domain. I just loved old imagery that was no longer used or copyrighted anymore. And I like to put them together. And that's kind of how I got my start art, with these complex digital compositions where there is no man there. There's actually just things put together.
Why is the chicken down there? I don't want to call it what it is.
Now you know why it's down there. Yeah, but that's why it's called hunk of junk. And I'll show you the next one, next slide. This one's called Out to Pasture. This is all Vermont. As you can see, the cow's forehead and everything that is the Vermont state right there, and its head. So everything there,
And
its tail is an axe. Yeah, so it's
so good.
it was just everything Vermont. It's great. So that actually won the award at Studio B. So I was pretty excited for that.
Mm-hmm.
Next one. Then my photographs on wood. This is obviously my famous beer kitty, which sometimes slits, but I changed it in Photoshop to make it red and beer because I thought that was a little more just than slits. So I put some good beer on. But you can see how the wood grain really shows through. I used no white ink. Yeah, there's not any white ink used in that. Next one. Here's another one for my Appalachian Trail series. This is called A Break in the Tunnel. But again, just kind of shows you how the wood grain works. And I try to look through all my substrates and say, that one will work good. I think this one will work well. Yes.
It looks like waves of sun and sky and clouds.
Yes, yep. And sometimes they get so busy you can't tell they're on wood. They just kind of give a hue. But sometimes when I know you're going to see it, then I get really picky about what piece is going to get picked for that. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
This is, as you know, I won the Jazz Fest. That's near and dear to my heart. The guy works. Every year I do my best. I enter it. This was 2 years ago. This was called Encore. And in the paper, they really liked this because you weren't on stage and you were not in the audience. The author thought it was a really neat perspective. But to me, as a photojournalist, that's where I always stood on stage and watched everybody. So to me, that's how I'm used to seeing performances, is kind of off stage in the back. And I thought it would be really neat to kind of put that together. That's a composition of 4 different photographs from the Galatrov, I'm not saying his name right, but the jazz photographer from the middle of the 20th century. All of his work is in the Library of Congress. You should check it out if you have not. But those were these photographs are based from. Then I recompiled them together into a stage with an audience and kind of getting washed out by the light as if you were behind the stage. That's pretty big. It's like that big. It's really big, yeah. Next one. This is the piece that is currently on display for this year. It just got accepted yesterday. And this is called Duet. This is my jazz piece, kind of playing off the reverberation. So I was really inspired by Albert Akramov, if I'm saying his name right. Just really good, punchy colors. I know you probably can't see the inspiration from his work to mine, but but I tried to just match his style a bit. And on this one, I really fought with myself. I was really trying to show wood more So I didn't add any other elements. I didn't add any background elements. I just kind of kept it just them two and put it on wood and said, leave it. So we'll see if people like it or not. But I kept it simple. That one's pretty big. Each one is about 30 inches tall, that one. Next slide. Here is the exhibit I just had at Art Plus called Cosmic Garden. As I told you, those were all made from Molly Stark State Park. This was all inspired off of my Hope Blossoms mural. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with that in the city of Reading, but we'll see that coming up. But this whole exhibit that I had was phenomenally successful. I probably underpriced myself because almost everything sold. And it was just a really big hit. It was a good thing of like good digital marketing, having a good idea, tying them all together, and then having a good presentation, and just really worked well. It just closed at the end of February.
But you would be a good fit for that gallery. I thought about it, but I don't do technical.
It's a lot of work too, the side work too. So I do a lot of like the digital marketing for them. I make the postcards and stuff. Yeah, so it's a lot, but it teaches you a lot too. So it's a lot of work. But this whole thing was inspired off of my Hope Blossoms mural, which I was asked to do by Mike Miller, who does a lot of the murals in West Reading. Next slide. Here, this is Cosmic Garden, which I told you guys about earlier. These were all from my employment at Molly Stark State Park. I got inspired just because that was the big space race again between private enterprises. Seems like everybody's trying to do space, so I thought we should talk about the fragility of human life and organic matter as we all try to want to go beyond our planet when we can't fix this one. I'll get off my soapbox, but that is that's what I'm trying to talk about here. Just not say one thing or another, but just the fragility of organic matter and then space and just the difference between them. So that's what I was kind of going for with this whole series of 10. Plus, they're just visually cool. Next one. This was my first design for a mural that I was asked to do last year for suicide. And it was definitely one of the hardest jobs I've ever had in my life. And I was hired and they said, how do you make a mural? How do you make artwork about suicide? So I said, I had a couple of designs and we're like, nah, I didn't like them, but this is the one I liked. And this one is called Let the Highs Beat the Lows. And you can see there's the motif of the Reading skyline in the background, and it's the highs and the lows, and he's kind of a potted plant, his head, kind of fighting between the highs and the lows. We went to the board, they loved it. We were just about to say, let's make it, and it got denied because it was too gripping. They said, we love it.
What?
Too gripping. Too gripping. It was too negative. It conveyed suicide, but not in a positive angle. So to me, it was kind of like, oh no, we were there and I loved the design. But I was like, okay, put it away and let's start all over again. Yeah, it was like,
I was born with
so it was tough, to have this design to go that far. And then there was things I didn't think about. As an artist, I'm just trying to convey the light and the dark. And then I had the mental health professionals come and say, well, you shouldn't use bat, so you're trying to say he's batshit crazy or something like that. Things you don't think about as an artist. You're just kind of going off of visually engaging things. So I said, okay, so I was able to use design for my own personal use. But it made me have to create a new design, which was definitely the home run, which would be the next slide, I believe, Don. And this is the big mural. If you've ever been in the center of it's right on Cherry Street in Reading, downtown Reading. It's 45 feet tall. It's like 4 stories tall. It's huge. Yeah, this thing is big. You'll see, I have a little video that kind of explains how we do this, but this is the design we ended up on. And what they wanted was to really call back to the 80s. So I thought that was an interesting thing. So I did Tetris. People who were in their prime in the 80s, men in their 50s and 60s are the most affected by suicide in Berks County. So we wanted to address that, but I didn't want to address a gender or anything like that. I went down that rabbit hole with the previous design, and I said, let's keep it just human. And my only nod to them was the Tetris, the 80s. And that comes together not like a puzzle. Tetris isn't perfect, and that was what I was trying to convey with mental health. That there is no right or wrong. You have to figure it out. So that's the brainstem of flowers kind of looking up. You can see again the city motif in the background with the big hope on there.
Where is it? Can I ask? Oh, yeah, the previous design had all those zeros and ones, and I'm thinking about how how big the non-binary, I mean, I went to computer
Yes.
school in the 70s. They still had radio tubes in them. We had to learn zeros and ones, binary.
And, you know, and I don't want to throw these other committees under the bus.
Here you eliminated.
Yes, because they asked me what the zeros and ones were.
Right.
And I said, it's binary code, and it was all about texting, are you okay? So all that binary code is just saying, are you okay? Are you okay? Over and over and over again. And they said, what is it? And they didn't like it. So I decided to just drop it. It's kind of over their heads, for lack of a better term.
Pearls before swines.
Yeah.
Script.
You know, it was a good, like, it's what the customer wants. I think that was a really good lesson for me. You know, it's.
But as an artist, that's hard to.
It is, especially when you have a design that you're happy with. And I had to have a week of just not even thinking about the new design. But I am happy where we ended up. I'm really in love with this. And I have a really cool video to show you guys how this was made and how big it really is. It took over 300 people to make this a reality. Here was the mural that I was talking about that kind of got me the gig for the big mural. He really liked how this one was done. He said, can you do this digital design, something like this for the suicide? So I said, absolutely, you know, let's try it. I'd rather have him say you failed and kick me out than say, no, I don't know if I can do that. So next slide.
Pagoda's on the National Historic Register.
Oh yeah?
Not just local, it's national registered.
Oh, good. Well, is that why they always sell every time I make a pagoda piece?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And then I've been fortunate enough to get a job from Teleflex. They put in a bid for a big sculpture in Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia company came back for $100,000 for a sculpture, and I said I could do it cheaper and better. And I had to give a presentation to them. Never done that before. I did all the schematics and the plans, and I said I can build this. I built it in my friend's garage. I did it for half the price, and they love it. So it was a really neat experience, and just kind of throwing myself in there and just doing it. So it was, yes, those are all stainless steel.
You are a mask.
I like to, yeah, I like to throw in.
He's so modest.
Next slide. Just another pictures of it. These are the spirals. I wanted to put something on, it's like a little vestibule when you walk in. That's what this is over top of. So it's this awkward space in a big open building. So that's what these kind of flying birds are, just to kind of balance out the mobile that's hanging in the center. Next slide.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a bigger picture of it.
Incredible. That is awesome.
It's big.
It's so much nicer than all those thousands of little birds down in Philadelphia.
Yes,
It's beautiful.
Thank you. Next slide. This is a piece that I just did 2 weeks ago with Mike Miller. That's Mike Miller who did the mural with. He's a big muralist. He was asked to do a mosaic. He's a really big glass mosaic guy, but they wanted a mosaic done out of pictures. And he goes, well, I've never done that before. So that is the whole hospital staff from 1900. It's over 600 people. It's over 600 nurses from Reading Hospital. And it all makes up Maria Heidel. She was, she has the Navy Cross. She's one of 4 women to get that. She died in the first pandemic. She fought in the Spanish, I forget what war it was. Yeah, the Spanish flu. It was a war. She got out. Then she went back to fight for the pandemic. She ultimately succumbed to the pandemic, the Spanish flu, in 1918. But she was a Reading nurse and nationally recognized, so they wanted a mural done of her. So it was really neat to just kind of put them all together. And Mike says, "Can you take 600 photographs and make one woman out of it?" And again, I said, "Well, let's try." So it was neat. It's one of those, if you ever go into the clock tower right at 6th Street at the Reading Hospital, it's you can see it right from the outside, so it's pretty neat.
What year was that created?
That was just done 2 weeks ago.
Oh,
Very new. Yeah, very new.
it's been installed 2 weeks.
Yep, and Dan Berg was the printer. I think he's kind of down your way a little bit more. He does some fine printing out of your Berg canvas. You guys have ever heard of that? He helped print it on really nice. They didn't want it sticking out from the wall so nobody would catch it. So I just did the digital work for it, so it's pretty neat. And Mike was the one in the archive room getting all 600 photographs, so he probably had a harder job.
And so did the face go on there, or is this,
So
I got so many questions.
Yeah, I can show you another picture then. But it's one of those, you're walking, you see her, and then she's gone, and she just becomes photographs. And there's this magical line where you just don't see her anymore, and she just becomes faces of the actual employees. So in this, it looks like a person, but if you would take a couple more steps, she disappears, and it just becomes employee
I've
photographs.
seen that in magazines.
Yeah.
Marketing, I've seen things.
And I did rely heavily on a program to do it, but the program doesn't do it necessarily the right way. So it kind of took me almost all the way there. But then I had to move titles around, and then there was the donors family who wanted to be extra recognized. So her picture is 4 times as big. You can't really see it, but that was the trick that has to, like, okay, the computer program can get me 99% of the way there, but it's that last 1% that really makes it. Yes, that was the hard part. Next slide.
With the hair.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I find that amazing.
And these are my stone spheres. I was going to bring one. I just got juried in on them, actually. But I sold them all at my exhibit, so I don't have any to bring you. But what they are is they're a stone ball that is separate from its base. You can hold it, you can spin it, and it's all river rocks. And I'll tell you guys how I do it, because everybody wants to know, how do you do it? It's not a balloon on the inside. Think the opposite. It is actually a bowl. It's made in a bowl. And I use a cold weld 2-part epoxy. And as I start adding stones, it starts curling around into itself. Anybody can make one. The artistry really comes into that last stone. Putting that last piece, getting that absolutely right, that is where the mastery comes in. And then I just find driftwood when I'm out kayaking or hiking or biking, and I find a piece, I fall in love with it, and then I put it in storage for 2 years so it can dry out, forget all about it. Then I go back to my woodshed and say, oh, look at that piece, I forgot all about it. So that's my drying process. So I fall in love, forgetting, falling in love again. So
Like 1,000 different keystones.
yes. And I love to find different rocks too. Like we can be anywhere, and if I just find cool stones, I'll make everybody stop, and I say, everybody fill up your pockets, I need some rocks. So, so that's about the last slide. It's just kind of the end, and oh no, that's one I did called Orbit, which is a little ball and a big ball. That one just sold. Some psychologists bought that for her office as a conversation piece, which I thought was interesting. But it's called Balance of Nature, and to me, it's mankind's attempt, these sculptures are mankind's attempt to take irregular nature, and we have to make it perfect. I'm just trying to talk to that aspect of it, and that's why it's called Balance of Nature. That specific piece is called Orbit because it has the little ball orbiting around the big piece of driftwood. And then obviously that cosmic garden piece was inspired by my mural because it has the same head motif in there. So that one was pretty cool. Next slide, done. And that's it. That's my website and social media. You don't have to do .com anymore. You can do .art. So I encourage you guys, if you have a website, to do .art. Don't do .com. You're not a commercial. But that's a new thing. So .art is a brand new domain, but I'm all about it. So if you guys have any questions, you want to see all my whole collection, it's all online at Didyoung.art. That's the same for the website, same for Instagram, same for Facebook, Didyoung.art.
I would like to thank Gregory for a terrific show. His work is astounding, and we wish him the best of luck in the future. We'd also like to thank Don for supplying new technology for the Guild to explore. Now you have the opportunity to view the lectures and art forum on Zoom as well as in person at the Hill School, Boyer Gallery Center of the Arts. We'd also like to thank everyone who came out this evening. We appreciate your support. So, with all that being said, let's give Gregory a nice big hand.